Everyone.
Appel au
Good
règlement, Monsieur le
afternoon.
Président.
I
Point of
have,
order.
pursuant
Monsieur le
to
Président,
standing
appel au
order.
règlement.
Point of order. Point of order.
Yes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I am very happy to see the ministers here today, but I have a point of order concerning the motion that I tabled on May 4th, 2018. And I think that I can read it. I'm going to read it again and explain why I'm not tabling it. I'm not tabling it. I'm not tabling the motion. I'm explaining to you why this is a point of order. I am not tabling this motion. I tabled it I think 6 times in the past year, including once before the ministers, and so I'm not tabling it. I'm going to explain to you why this is a point of order, but I wanted to talk about the motion so that everyone knows what I'm speaking about. The motion says that the committee should undertake a study on the sick leave benefits of at least 6 meetings to study if the program responds to the needs of the recipients and what the impact of the program is, and whether the program is accessible. D, the public that is affected by this program and their characteristics. And without limiting it to this list, we should hear from former claimants, other witnesses, and government representatives, as well as the minister, so that we can report on these conclusions. This is a point of order, Mr. Speaker, because as I have said many, many times since May 2018, I have tried to table this motion in the committee. That is how we are supposed to proceed. And every time there was a request for an adjournment of the committee, and every time the government representatives refused to vote on this, the government members. And, that's fine. I said, okay, that was their choice. But when last week in the House calendar, I'm explaining my point of order. Yes, my point of order is that the government members are refusing to vote on this motion in committee, but they put it on the House calendar last week. It's exactly the same motion. And we've held an hour of debate on that same motion, and yet they refuse to vote on it here in the committee. Yes, we want to reform the EI insurance, but the sick leave seem.
Les prestations de maladie sont celles qui sont. Oui, c'est un point d'ordre.
You should be citing a particular point of order there. Please, if there is a particular reference to the points of order, please get to that, because we do have a very short time with the ministers. Can you please explain the standing order that's being contravened?
Excusez-moi, on m'explique ce que vous venez de me dire. Okay. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chair, before giving you this information, I would like to explain why it is so important that we vote on this.
Order, we got to move on. We've had plenty of time. There's either a point of order here or there isn't. If there's a reference to a particular point of order, please immediately get to it.
J'ai pas le numéro de l'article sous les yeux.
I don't have the number of the standing order before me. I'm sorry.
Then I have to move on, and Mr. Barlow has the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I don't want to take too much time, but I did mention prior to us leaving in the previous portion of this meeting that I do want to ask for unanimous consent to waive the minister's opening statements. I think all of us know their files quite well. I know we're going to cut them down to 5 minutes. I'm not really too sure what they're going to say in 5 minutes. I would rather us have as much time for questions as possible. So I'm asking for my colleagues around this table to give unanimous consent to waive the minister's opening statement so we can get to questions. And I think really that's what we're all here for, is to have our opportunities to ask questions of the ministers. No offense to the ministers, but I don't need to hear the PMO talking points for the next 20 minutes. I would rather us have the chance to ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. Do we have unanimous consent? No. No, we do not.
I had to try.
Pursuant to Standing Order 108.2, the committee is considering the subject matter of the supplementary estimates, B, 2018-2019, vote 1B, 5B, and 10B under the Department of Employment and Social Development. Appearing before the committee is the Honourable Jean-Yves Duclos, Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development. The Honourable Patty Haidu, Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Labour. The Honourable Carla Qualtrough, Minister of Accessibility, and the Honourable Philomena Tassi, the Minister for Seniors. Appearing as witnesses alongside the ministers are the following officials. Just for the sake of time, with respect to the officials, I'll introduce you as you're called upon, and each minister will have no more than 5 minutes for their opening remarks. I will put up the one finger if at the 1 minute mark, and we'll go from there. And I believe up first we have Minister Haidu. The next 5 minutes are all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the committee members for all of the hard work that you do debating and talking about skills development in the case of my file. I'm here today to talk about that, to talk about how our government is working so hard to make sure that Canadians have a fair chance at success, and a big part of that is making sure that people have access to skills training, access to supports to not only just find good jobs, but keep them, and really quality jobs. So there's 3 key approaches that we've been taking to really accelerate skills training in this country. One, making sure that workers who are currently employed have access to good quality job training. We know that there's a lot of potential for people if they can get access to increased job training, even if they're currently employed. Certainly keeping our eye on youth unemployment and youth employment by making sure that young people have better job opportunities, and not just, again, just a job, but quality jobs. And thirdly, by making post-secondary more affordable, regardless of whether we're talking about colleges or universities. It's really important that people can afford to go to school, and it's really a big part of that fair chance to succeed. So through programs like the Canada Summer Jobs Program, the Youth Employment Strategy, Canada Service Corps, and the Canada Student Loans Program, that's been our focus for the past 3 years, is making sure that everybody sees themselves as having a fair chance and opportunity to succeed. Canada Summer Jobs is a big part of the youth employment strategy, and many of you around the table will know that our government doubled Canada Summer Jobs because it was such a critical aspect of a young person's opportunity to gain new skills and those valuable job experiences that land them in possibly the next job or help them explore career potential. And so this program has always been about giving young people good quality job opportunities and experience they need to succeed in the job market. So over the past year, you know that we've made some changes. We consulted with stakeholders, and we made several changes to the program with a focus that we would make this program more accessible to more young people and easier to apply for employers, with a focus on quality jobs. And so this is going to be a key change this year, is that you'll see young people from across the country, regardless of their studies status, be able to apply for Canada Summer Jobs. And I think this is fundamentally about fairness. I'm very excited about that. And in fact, employers will be required to show demonstrably how they're going to mentor and support that young person to develop those skills. We know that the Harper Conservatives had the worst youth unemployment rate since the 90s, soared to 16% in July 2009. Yet instead of helping young people succeed, they chose to cut $20 million from the youth employment strategy. Instead, we chose to invest in young people. We chose to invest in skills training and to take a chance on people that often felt like they were left behind. And the plan is working. The youth unemployment rate is currently down to 11.2%. While we know that there's still more work to do, we're seeing positive change. And part of this success is our commitment to provide 70,000 young people with valuable work experience through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. The previous government, this program under the previous government, was constantly on the chopping block. In fact, their last year of government, this program only created 35,000 jobs. And so as part of our significant expansion, we're requesting authority to include $3.4 million in vote number 1 to ensure that quality experiences for youth are available across the country so that they gain the skills and work experience they need to succeed in our workforce. The additional funding will support the processing of high volume of applications that we're receiving to deliver those quality work placements. And I stressed that earlier. This is really about making sure that those jobs are quality jobs. I believe every young person in this country deserves to work in a safe place where they have mentorship and leadership and an opportunity to develop their skills. Another important part of preparing young people for the workforce is ensuring that all Canadians have the skills and training they need to succeed. And we know that finances can often be the make or break decision to get young people into their post-secondary education. And that's why we've made important changes to student financial assistance. We've increased Canada student grants by 50%. We've increased support for part-time students and students with children. We've increased support for adult learners, like I talked about before. And we've changed the repayment assistance program so that student loan borrowers are not required to make payments until they're earning at least $25,000 per year. So as a result of our investments, most students are able to now repay their student loans, and the write-off amount now represents less than 1% of the student loan portfolio. Our department is requesting a write-off for debts owed to the Crown for the unrecoverable Canada student loans in the amount of $163 million. In many cases, in those cases, we've exhausted options to recover the debt. Once 6 years elapses without payment or acknowledgement of the debt, it's very difficult to recover it. There are many reasons for these write-offs: bankruptcy, small balances, extreme financial hardship, and compromise settlements. And we're going to continue to work to make sure that education is affordable, that people have opportunities once they graduate with either debt relief or opportunities for better placements through the Student Work Placement Program, so that we continue to see a downward tracking of debt that's not recoverable. And lastly, these supplementary estimates B also include adjustments to current year funding and to non-budgetary items. These items in the supplementary estimates demonstrate our clear commitment to Canadians to grow our economy, strengthen the middle class, and help those working hard to join it.
Thank you, Minister. Up next, we have Minister Jean-Yves Duclos. 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci, membres.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee, for being here today. And all four of us are very thankful to be here, and we are here on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. And I would also like to underscore the presence of the government officials as well. First, allow me to underscore the magnificent work that you've done on M110. Under this motion, we were asked to make a study of the death of infants, and obviously this is highly delicate and sensitive in nature, and you undertook it with a great deal of respect and intelligence. I would also like to take a few minutes to underscore the measures that we have recently taken to help workers, parents, and caregivers to have a more flexible and inclusive access to EI benefits. First, I would like to mention that the drop in premiums means that workers will have read up to $170 less in $170 less as compared to 2015. And by October of this year, 5 million claimants will have benefited from the reduced waiting time, which went from 2 to 1 weeks. And we're talking about 5 million claimants. And in fact, families can choose to receive parental benefits over a period of 12 or 18 months at a rate of lower benefits. And there are new support measures to give care to a member of the family who is suffering from injury or grave illness. As you can see, our government is working very hard to help Canadians. We have also put in measures that will benefit middle-class citizens and to help more of our citizens to working hard to join it. And that is exactly what we are going to continue to do over the next months. Between now and October, we estimate that some 57,000 parents will choose the prolonged parental leave to better meet their family needs. Some 61,000 families will benefit from parental benefits that are shared, and this will foster gender equality. And some 24,000 caregivers will be able to receive new caregiver benefits so that they can offer support to their loved ones. In short, EI is now offering more choices, more flexibility, and more inclusivity to families and caregivers. I am very proud of these major improvements that we have together put in place, and I'm also very proud of the projects that we are carrying out together to reduce poverty in Canada. Once again, I would like to thank the committee for its very precious work, valuable work that was done during the study on breaking the cycle, a study on poverty reduction, which was tabled in the House of Commons in May 2017. This report provided very useful and pertinent recommendations to the government and was very, very helpful in our joint efforts to develop the very first Canadian poverty reduction strategy. In August, we also launched an opportunity for all, the very first Canadian poverty reduction strategy. With that in mind, we have already developed and tabled Bill C-87, a bill concerning poverty reduction. And our purpose was to reduce poverty by 20% between now and 2020 and by 50% between now and 2030. I'm also thinking of the Canada Child Benefit, the very first housing strategy in the history of our country, and the and another program that is a key part of our national housing strategy. In closing, Mr. Chair, I would like to underscore that I'm very proud of the work that we have done together to increase the economic well-being of Canada's middle class and those working hard to join it. We have delivered the goods until now, but we still have a great deal of work to do, and our collective work, thanks to this collective work, we will be able to get there. I hope that we will be able to continue this excellent cooperation that we have had with you, members of this committee, in order to continue for the benefit of all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And up next, Minister of Seniors, the Honourable Philomena Tassi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to begin by thanking all the committee members here for the invitation to be with you here today. It's really nice to be back at HUMA. It was the committee at which I first started after being elected as a member of Parliament, so I'm very aware of the great work that takes place at this committee, and I thank you for that great work. When the Prime Minister appointed me as Minister of Seniors last summer, he entrusted me with a mission full of exciting and positive challenges. My job as Minister of Seniors is to help the government better understand the needs of Canadian seniors and ensure that the programs and services respond to the needs of Canada's aging population. As we have stated before, by 2030, seniors will make up almost 1/4 of the population. So we need to get ready for this. The Government of Canada has the power and the duty to help seniors, especially those facing challenges. Compared to other places in the world where growing older can be a struggle, Canada is fortunate. Caring for seniors truly is a whole government effort. Around the cabinet table, all my colleagues have been proponents of initiatives supporting our seniors and their caregivers. Together, we design and deliver programs to help seniors to live healthier, more active lives. I'm especially proud of the significant progress our government has made in just 3 years to improve the quality of life of Canadian seniors. In particular, we look at the steps to increase financial security of Canadian seniors, especially the most vulnerable seniors. And here, for example, I reference the increase in the guaranteed income supplement for the lowest income seniors, which we increased by almost $1,000 per year. This has resulted in assisting close to 900,000 seniors across Canada, and benefiting 70% of whom have been women who have benefited by this. To ensure better protection for banking customers, particularly seniors, we amended the Bank Act to better regulate high-pressure sales tactics, overcharging, fraud, and other potential risks when dealing with financial institutions and telecommunication companies. We know that a secure and dignified retirement goes beyond financial stability, and that is why we're helping seniors stay in their homes and their communities, and this is a top priority for our government. We have heard that most seniors wish to age in place. We want to support them in that. And that's why we invested $6 billion in home care and palliative care. The National Housing Strategy will reduce the number of seniors in housing need through the new $13.2 billion National Housing Co-Investment Fund. This fund is expected to create at least 7,000 new affordable housing units for seniors and will support the much-needed renovations, including improved accessibility to allow seniors to age in place. My cabinet colleagues and our dedicated team of public servants at Employment and Social Development Canada work hard each and every day to develop programs and services designed to secure a dignified and comfortable future for Canadian seniors. We encourage initiatives to promote healthy aging. For example, the New Horizons for Seniors program continues to provide funding and support to many communities and organizations dedicated to improving seniors' well-being and reducing social isolation. Health concerns have a direct correlation on the quality of life, and this is especially true for seniors. Too often, seniors experience mental health issues such as Alzheimer's or dementia. Our government has set up a joint federal, provincial, territorial initiative to support the development and implementation of a national dementia strategy that will aim to improve the quality of life of those living with dementia as well as their caregivers. In conclusion, know that I will continue to advance seniors' issues, a cause that I care deeply about, and a portfolio that I am truly honored and humbled to have been asked to serve in.
Thank you, Minister Tassi. And up next, we have the Honourable Carla Qualtrough, Minister of Accessibility. 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello to members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here today with my colleagues to speak to the 2018-2019 supplementary estimates, funding specifically for disability programs, and to give you an update on the progress that's been made with respect to my mandate of Minister responsible for accessibility. Je vais tenter de donner une brève présentation.
I'm going to try to give a brief presentation because I'd like to give you as much time as possible for questions.
B, we're making the following statutory authorities adjustments to the Canadian Disability Savings Program, which includes the Registered Disability Savings Plan. First of all, a decrease of $44.2 million for the Canadian Disability Savings Grants. Second, an increase of $49.2 million for Canadian Disability Savings Bonds, which, when combined, results in a net increase of $5 million for the Canadian Disability Savings Program. The Canadian Disability Savings Program is a long-term savings plan to help persons with disabilities and their families save for the future. The increase of $5 million is due to continued growth in the program. This critical program supports the long-term financial security for persons with disabilities. We're happy to see increase in participation in this program and continue to explore ways that we can improve its impact in supporting Canadians with disabilities. Also, as per my accessibility portfolio, ESDC is requesting additional funding for the administration of the proposed Accessible Canada Act and to enhance the Opportunities Fund for persons with disabilities. This represents an increase of $6.2 million on the 2018-2019 main estimates presented to this committee by Minister Duncan back in May. Comme vous le savez, l'une de mes priorités.
As you know, one of my priorities over the past year was to have a Bill C-80 adopted, the Canada Act on Accessibility, as quickly as possible. To do so, we listened to comments from Canadians from coast to coast to coast affected by this bill, and we're working hard to meet those expectations.
Work in studying the proposed Accessible Canada Act last fall. I was very proud that this bill has passed the House with support from all parties. Thanks to your effort, the proposed Accessible Canada Act is now before the Senate and will hopefully continue through the parliamentary process in a timely manner. In addition, I'd like to acknowledge the difficult and emotional work that you're doing on the private member's motion M192 regarding the protection of the needs of people with episodic disabilities caused, amongst other things, by multiple sclerosis. I'm looking forward to reading your report in spring. Chers membres, pour que le Canadien devienne un pays.
Dear members, in order for Canada to become an even more accessible country for all, it is essential that we continue to support persons with disabilities. For decades, the members of the disabled community have been working very hard to make a more inclusive and accessible Canada. Bill C-81 will bring change, and that will ensure continuity, and it will reinforce this bill even more.
Priorities for the application of Bill C-81. The government is committed to timely and meaningful progress on implementation. New entities such as the Canadian Accessibility Standards Development Organization will be operational within 6 to 12 months of royal assent. Initial regulations will be based on recognized and established standards. And as now required by the proposed legislation, the first regulations under the Act will be made by 2021, and the establishment of these regulations ensures the legislation will be reviewed by Parliament by 2026. Honourable members, as Minister for Accessibility, my objective is to establish a Canada where persons with disabilities can participate fully in our society and in our economy and have an equal chance to succeed. I thank you for your help in making this happen, and we are happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for staying within the time constraints. Up first, with questions, we have MP Barlow, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And before I get to my questions, I just want to say publicly how disappointed I am that I appreciate the fact that the ministers came, but the fact that all four of you came together just shows how you talk about how important you feel the work of this committee is. But the fact that you all appeared together giving us exactly one round of questions shows to me exactly how you feel and the importance of the work of this committee is you don't feel that we have the opportunity to ask you questions. It's unbelievable that 4 ministers had this 1 hour in your timeline to be together to be at this committee. And it's not only a disservice and disrespectful to us on this side, but it's also disrespectful to your own colleagues who are not going to have an opportunity to ask you a question. They will get one round the same as us. And I just don't think this is right, Mr. Chair. We talked to you about how we felt about this. And for a government that keeps talking about open, transparent, we're going to do things differently, this is really disappointing that you won't each give us an hour of your time to talk about the things that you keep saying are so important. And we obviously feel important as well. That's why we're here. But to give us 5 minutes, obviously this was an organized decision to make sure that we had extremely limited time to ask any questions. And I just want to make sure that anybody who's watching this today understands this is highly irregular, extremely disrespectful, and disappointing that you won't give us the opportunity to talk about the number of motions and bills and legislations that are going through here, and we can only touch on a few things, and that's really quite disappointing. But I do want to get to some questions, as I do have a limited amount of time. And my questions first would be to Minister Qualtrough, and these weren't questions I was planning on asking, but I did watch your announcement on the weekend and again last night on television, and your department is considering changes to the ethical procurement rules on federal contracts that are committed criminal charges. Now they get a 10-year ban from bidding on federal contracts, but now you've said that your department is looking at making changes to that, that you could reduce the number of years on that. I'd like to know, where did that decision come from? Is this something that is, how many times have you been lobbied by SNC-Lavalin to make this decision?
Excuse me, Mr. Barlow. Mr. Rumi?
I'm just trying to understand the relevance here to the subs.
Well, to my colleague, many of the ministers talked about things that had nothing to do with the supplemental estimates, and I'm taking this very small opportunity that I have to ask questions to ask questions.
I will have to agree with Mr. Rumi. Minister Qualtrough is here in her role with regard to accessibility. She doesn't report to this committee.
It's my time, Mr. Chair.
Fair enough. But
they've made the decision. The jobs are dependent on this decision.
Yep.
They've talked about this in question period every day. The jobs that are on the line. We are the committee that deals with labor.
We are in HUMA. This is Minister Qualtrough is here as the minister
It's my
for
time,
accessibility.
Mr. Chair.
But relevance
Let me
is
ask a
required.
question.
Relevance is required on this.
You're giving us a limited amount of time to talk to the ministers,
And you're burning
gonna
up that time.
do the question. What I could ask?
No, I'm saying that it's a point of order of relevance, and I agree with that point of order.
Clock is stopped.
Clock is stopped. Right,
I'm asking Mr. Barlow to get back to relevance.
Mr. Chair. It's our opportunity as members of Parliament to talk about the issues that our constituents want us to talk about. You've given us a ridiculously little amount of time to ask the ministers who are here, our one chance to have questions of them, and now you're going to censor what questions I can ask. And they were bringing up issues that had nothing to do with the supplementary estimates. Correct?
I'm asking.
Therefore,
you
I
to-
think
I'm
I can ask
asking
questions
you-
that are outside the box here.
No, you're being asked to be relevant to this committee.
And this is relevant to this committee. This is relevant to this committee.
Labor.
Labor. You've talked about it every
you're
day.
asking the
9,000
accessibility
jobs
minister
are on the line
about
here.
labor. No.
So I'm asking
your
the-
time is running short, sir.
No, we're still on a
Continue.
point of order.
No,
this is Mr. Rumi's point of order.
And I ruled on that point of order, and I've asked you to continue on about 2 minutes ago.
Well, Mr. Chair, this is extremely frustrating that you are now censoring the questions that we can
I am
ask
not
to
censoring
ministers.
the
Yes,
questions.
you are. You are
I'm
saying what I
asking you
can
to
and
be
cannot
relevant.
ask.
I'm asking you a
You are
question.
You are
to
saying
be
what I
relevant.
can and cannot ask here in this committee.
Happens in every committee.
But Miss Minister, will you answer the question? How often were you lobbied by SNC-Lavalin to make this change to your department's procurement rules?
Mr. Speaker, if it helps, I'm actually appearing tomorrow at OGO on sub-estimates, so perhaps I can answer that question tomorrow when I'm there in my capacity
Well,
at
you're-
OGO.
That's right.
Why
And
won't
that's
you
the,
just
appro-
an-
and
will
that's
you
the
answer it
appropriate
now,
venue for that.
Minister, then?
Mr. Rumi's on as a point of order.
Again, we are here to talk about the supplementary estimates. I don't see the relevance of this question.
I would agree with that. Mr. Barlow, your time is continuing now. Please get to relevance.
Okay, well, Mr. Chair and Mr. Rumi, Minister Haydu, try not to be partisan, but she just brought up her 5-minute speech about everything the Conservatives did wrong and everything that she's doing right. That has nothing to do with supplementary estimates. I'm asking some of the questions that I believe your Liberal government is doing wrong and are unethical. And you don't want to answer it. You don't want to face it. That's your decision. But our decision as members of Parliament to ask questions that our constituents want us to answer. Minister Haydu took all her time to slam Conservative policy. We didn't put an attestation on the Canada Summer Jobs Program that 1,500 groups were denied. Liberal government did that. So I think I can ask the questions that I need to ask.
With very little time, I'm just going to refer the member to page 116, the House of Commons Procedure and Practices, 3rd edition. Estimates consideration in committee. The questions and discussions at these meetings are generally wide-ranging, although the rule of relevance does apply. This is not an issue of censorship. This is an issue of relevance, and you have very little time left.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate it, but it's still, you are taking away our opportunity to ask questions. Minister of Culture, then, with the C81, we had more than 200 amendments that were put forward, and we've heard from disability groups who are extremely upset that none of those amendments were brought forward, were accepted because they want to see some teeth on that legislation. Are you working with the Senate to put some teeth into C81?
Very short answer, please.
Thank you. And yeah, we continue to work with both disability organizations and senators to make C81 as the best law it can be for Canadians with disabilities.
Mr. Rumi.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We're here to discuss the supplementary estimates, and I'm going to focus my time with Minister Duclos. There's some funds, $7 million for the implementation of the Agenda for Sustainable Development, SG goals, SGC. In keeping in line with that, I want to talk about housing and homelessness. And there's no question that this country has been facing a national housing crisis. And it didn't happen overnight. This has happened decades of poor, proper thinking and vision. In fact, in my riding, we see this every single day. And it's challenging because how do we move forward? It's not just the federal government. It has to be all orders of government working together to fix this crisis. I was one of the first people to do a roundtable on the National Housing Strategy. And what I heard, what I saw, I was glad to see come out in the National Housing Strategy. And just to point out a couple of things, the government doubled the funding for the homelessness partnering strategy, which means that in my riding and the lower Greater Vancouver area, that's about $14 million a year to fight homelessness. Likewise, on housing, according to numbers I've seen in my riding alone, and this government has invested more than $1.3 million in new housing projects, in addition to subsidizing more than 22,000 housing units. I mean, these are real things that affect people in my riding, in my home. And British Columbia is one of those epicenters where we have challenges that we need to work on. So my question is twofold. First, how is the government working to implement the National Housing Strategy so that the money that's already flowing continues for the next decade? And secondly, with the current homelessness partnering strategy, the funds ending this year, and the new homeless strategy funding starting in April 1st, what's the government doing to make sure that there's no gaps in the funding?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dan, for reminding us of the importance of affordable housing across Canada. It, of course, impacts the ability of families and children and seniors and women living in circumstances of family violence and many others. It impacts their abilities to be well and live safely. It also has an impact on communities. If we want our vibrant communities and cities across Canada to keep prospering, no, we need to have middle-class workers be housed safely and affordably. Otherwise, construction workers, clerks, teachers, nurses, police people, will not be able to live in the cities in which they need to work. So that's a clear crisis, and you're very good at highlighting it in BC and in the Lower Mainland in particular. This crisis is terrible, and that's why we needed a new era of housing leadership and partnership on the part of the federal government, something which was lacking for too many years. And that came through the launch of the first ever National Housing Strategy a year and a few months ago in November 2017. This is a historic step for the federal government to assume its responsibilities to make sure that every Canadian has access to a safe and affordable home. It's a $40 billion plan, 10-year plan, a long-term plan, because this is what stakeholders want. It's also something that is going to decrease homelessness by at least 50%, take out of housing needs unacceptable housing conditions more than 500,000 families, and as you said, lead to an era in part of partnership with municipalities and cities and provinces that we haven't seen for decades.
Thank you very much. In keeping with the Sustainable Development Goals, one of those goals is SDG 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities of all. When I look at that, in the studies that we've done, the last two studies that we've done here in HUMA on Motion 110 on parents who've lost a child, and the last one that we're just wrapping up is episodic disabilities. In both cases, this points to an EI program that is trying to support, find the best ways to support people in the most difficult of times. I know that your mandate letter called for an EI review. Is that review that's something that will take place? Will you be looking at cases such as what we've been exploring in these two studies that we've concluded?
Thank you again, and once again, now there is a clear link with the ability of our families and children and workers to live well. You will know that when we were elected in 2015, there were 5 special benefits. All of these 5 special benefits, and I won't list them, have been improved, made more flexible, more generous. We have also added 2 new benefits, a family caregiver benefit for people to be able to look after adults that are either sick or injured, and a new parental sharing benefit, which will be launched in just a few weeks from now, in March. Now, that is going to help the 97,000 families across Canada achieve, for example, greater gender equality, the ability of men and women to have the opportunity and the responsibility of sharing more equally the joys and the challenges that come with having both a work and a family life. So that is a historic step towards making more of our parents able to take fully part in the labor force, towards reducing income poverty, towards enhancing gender equality. In 2019, this is where we need to be.
Thank you so much. Madame Sanssouci?
Merci. Ma première question.
Thank you, Chair. My first question goes to Minister Duclos, because I don't feel that you responded to my colleague's question as to when there is going to be a reform of the EI system. Today on the Hill, there are representatives from the groups of unemployed people, and they are coming to tell us how the EI Act, how sexist the EI Act is, because before this committee, we heard from government representatives who said that 6 out of 10 workers do not have access to EI benefits. But when we look at those statistics and break them down by gender, we can see that it is 30% of women who do not have access to EI benefits and 50% of men. So 7 out of 10 who pay into the EI system every week do not have access to the benefits. We also heard from groups of unemployed who are they came to speak to us at committee before Christmas, and they talked to us about problems in the North Shore, in the Gaspé region, and in New Brunswick, and who said it's not just pilot projects that they need. They need an in-depth reform of the EI system to see how benefits are calculated, to see how eligibility is calculated. So we need a reform in depth. And just before that, we heard from Marie-Hélène Dubé, who and 600,000 people signed her petition on the 15 weeks of EI benefits, saying that that is not enough because that part of the EI Act on sick leave benefits has not been reformed since 1971. So that's a very long time. When I was elected, the very first opposition day that I participated in as an NDP member was, well, we wanted to move a motion that would have benefits. So we talked about the EI program, and that whole day I was told by the government, by the government side, well, we're going to vote against your motion because we can do better. And the same thing happened when I tabled my Bill C-245, which was on a national poverty reduction strategy. You, the government, said, well, we're going to vote against you because we can do better. And that is why I am once again going to take my time today to table once again my motion because it is a high priority. The motion that, it's the motion. Yes, it's my motion. And it's a motion that I tabled on May 4th, 2018. And I'm going to take this opportunity to, of this time in committee to table motion 201, which was tabled in the House last week, and which says pretty much the same thing as the motion that I tabled that I tabled on May 4th, and we won't have time between now and the election to do an in-depth reform of the EI reform. We need a real national poverty reduction strategy. We won't have time, but we could look at the 15 weeks of EI benefits because those are the most vulnerable people who need it. The reality is that 1 out of 2 Canadians will have to deal with cancer in their lifetime, and so very urgently, and we could do this in committee very quickly. We could simply start this study. We could undertake a study of 6 meetings on labor shortages and barriers to filling, but not limited to whether current programs meet the needs of businesses, B, how to reduce labor shortages, including through the use of other models and initiatives, C, how government's programs, including the funding of skilled worker training, and we want to hear from you, Minister, on the 15 weeks more specifically. I know that my colleagues on the government side are going to muzzle us. They're going to adjourn debate once again. But in the meantime, we're going to go back to the House. We're going to debate motion 201 that reads exactly the same way. It's got the same content, but we could do that here in committee. You have the opportunity as a government right now to decide what we're discussing. And you are deciding to bring forward M201 in the House, which deals with the 15 weeks of EI benefits. And we could have studied that here in committee. We could have started the study a year ago. That's what I don't understand. I want to see results now for the most vulnerable Canadians. And that's what I'm waiting for. Thank you.
Wayne?
Chair, I move that the debate be now adjourned.
All those in favor of the debate, this particular motion be adjourned? Opposed? Carries? Okay. You have 48 seconds left.
Ben, je peux laisser le temps au ministre d'y répondre.
I will allow time for the minister to answer then. Thank you, Brigitte. You know how much I appreciate working with you, debating with you, and 49 seconds is so unfair. It's simply not enough, but luckily we'll be able to debate. I'll be able to commend you again for the work that you do and for the person you are as well. We're rather far away in the House, but in our hearts and in our heads, we're very close together. And I am overjoyed that we are having this discussion on the motion 201 in the House, because I know that it appeals to many, many members, more than those who are sitting on this committee. And you know that this is a motion that is part of a much broader context, seeking to improve the EI system, because you're right, our EI system must measure up to the conditions of families and workers in 2009.
MP Morrissey, please.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, disappointing that the opposition, conservative opposition, NDP, filibuster rather than deal with questions. One of the first motions this committee dealt with was an NDP motion to study EI reform, and they could have put whatever scope they wanted in that motion, and it wasn't dealt with. It was done by MP, I believe, Ms. Ashton. But I prefer to ask questions specifically on young people, the youth of this country, which is the future of the country. You referenced $163 million in Canada student loans that was written off, and I believe you used the term, the write-off was less than 1%. Could you tell the committee briefly what you're doing to ensure that young people do not have to revert to defaulting on student loans?
Well, thank you very much, MP and Morrissey. And I do want to say, Mr. Chair, that I want to pick up on a point made by MP Barlow. I'm happy to come back to HUMA at any point. So I'll leave that with your capable hands. But certainly wouldn't want to leave the impression that any of us don't want to answer questions on the really important files that we manage every single day on behalf of Canadians all across this country. So in response to your question, I mean, the first thing is the increase of grants. You know, you don't have to repay what you don't borrow. And so what we know for vulnerable students, and I can actually speak from experience as someone in my family, first in my family to graduate with a post-secondary education, that was made possible by Canada Student Grants. And it alleviates a lot of fear for families that are living in poverty, because not only are they, obviously they don't have money to necessarily, pay for the tuition or whatever is left that's not funded, but also that fear of paying back a loan down the line can prevent someone from attending school. And so we knew when we took office that one of the ways to get more kids to go to school, more people to attend studies, was to increase non-repayable Canada Student Grants. And we did that by 50%. So that's making post-secondary education more affordable for 43,000 more Canadians. Also, changing the repayment assistance program so that no graduate who applies for loans has to repay their student loan until they're earning at least $25,000 per year. That's another 54,000 students that are taking advantage of that repayment assistance program. Again, something that allows people to get their feet on the ground and get a little bit more stable in the workforce before they have to manage their Canada student loans. As you point out, the write-off amount is less than 1%. Let me just tell you that that's because of these important changes that we've made. In July 2011, the net default rate was 11.8%. In July 2017, after we took office, it dropped to 9%, an all-time low. That's really important because it shows us, it's beginning the evidence that actually supporting students who are at the lower levels of earnings to access education in a way that increases their confidence, allows them that breathing space, results in less default. And so, this is not just fiscally smart, this is smart for employers too. One of the things I'll tell you, and it's my final statement, Mr. Chair, thanks for giving me a few minutes, is that as I travel across the country, what employers are saying to me most is, I need more talent, I need more bodies. Those of you who come from Quebec will recognize that appeal, but certainly it's happening across the country. Obviously, some areas are experiencing it in deeper ways than others. But this lack of labor means that we need to double down on our efforts to get more young people the skills training that they need in affordable ways, and we can't afford to leave anybody behind. When we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to succeed and to develop their skills, it's good for them and their families and communities, but it's also good for the economy. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Minister. Two more questions. Oh, very good. You, in your supplementary Bs, you have you're asking for an increase of $409 million for the Canada Student Grants. Could you elaborate a bit on where you're going to target that? Briefly, I have one more question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, MP Morrissey. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will say that, as I mentioned in my first remarks, the grant piece is incredibly important. It's important for a few reasons. One, because for low-income students, it helps really transcend that barrier that often is all about money. We see that conversation in the Conservatives run by Doug Ford in Ontario, who have dramatically reduced access to grants, and the outcry from students, the outcry from employers, as a matter of fact, is being wrong-headed in its approach. This is not just good for students, by the way.
Federal government. Point of order.
This is not just good for students,
Excuse
by
me
the
to
way.
interrupt. Point of order, John.
Relevancy, we're supposed to be talking about federal government issues here. We're not talking about provincial government issues. I'm not really worried about what the province of Ontario is doing. I'm concerned about what the government of Canada is doing. So if the minister could bring her comments back to the issues, which is the supplementary estimates that we should be talking about here. I'd appreciate if she brought her. I have the floor,
debate,
Mr. Chair.
but not point of order. But go ahead.
She should bring her issues back to what.
Fair enough.
Well, thanks, MP and Mr. Chair. I think I was really using that example as a contrast piece to our government, because why we're investing in increased grants, in making sure that students have every opportunity to succeed, is because we know it's not just the right thing for that student and their families. This is, by the way, generational changing. It's also the right thing for our economy. If we don't have skilled, talented people in our communities, in our regions, in our provinces, in fact, what we're going to see is economic decline, and employers will not be able to find the talent they need. So the changes that we've made to student financial assistance eligibility has made 46,000 more Canadians able to afford post-secondary education. The short-sighted politics of cutting to education supports is just that. It's very short-sighted. One could argue that it's very unequal, but also it's really, really bad economic policy. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And moving on to MP Long, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to my colleagues, and good afternoon to the ministers here. We are very thankful you're here, and we appreciate your presentations to us. I just want to say first and foremost to all the ministers here, what a profound impact you're having on my riding of St. John Rossay and all Canadians, but in particular St. John Rossay. Minister Haydu with the Skills Link program, Canada Summer Jobs, youth training, Minister Duclos with the National Housing Strategy, the Canada Child Benefit. I want to congratulate you on meeting the government's poverty reduction target 3 years ahead of schedule. Congratulations, Minister Qualtrough, with the accessibility landmark legislation. And last, certainly but not least, my friend, Minister Tassi, with the increase to the GIS and the New Horizons Seniors Program. So my question is to Minister Tassi. And Minister Tassi, I know you've been traveling all over the country talking to Canadians, but I was lucky enough to have you in my riding of St. John Rossay. And if you remember, we went to the town of Rossay. We had a wonderful meeting with Mayor Nancy Grant. And we talked about how Rossay was designated an age-friendly community by the government of New Brunswick, which our federal government helped make happen by providing funding for the Rossay Seniors Resource Centre through the New Horizons Seniors Program. We also had a great meeting with the Rossay Age-Friendly Committee, and they were instrumental in establishing the centre to discuss this and other seniors initiatives in St. John Rossay. We had great discussions with the seniors, and I remember in particular 2 seniors who are in a low-income situation, single seniors, and they talked to me and us about just how profound the 10% increase in the GIS was to them and what a game changer and life changer it was to them. So, Minister Tassi, I just want you to express and talk about the impact of our government's investments in bolstering the GIS for low-income seniors and expanding the New Horizons Seniors Program. Can you just talk to that and see and share with us how instrumental that is to changing lives for Canadians?
Thank you, MP Long, for that question. And I have very fond memories of visiting your riding. I really appreciate the leadership that was shown there, and I am very optimistic. It's reflected in a number of parts of the country as I travel, to see groups coming together and taking proactive action in order to better serve the needs of seniors in their communities, and how in your particular case where you had, the firefighters going in and checking the houses to ensure that the fire alarms were working, and then that opportunity to engage in seniors. And that's happening across the country. And it's fantastic as the Minister of Seniors to be able to witness that firsthand. With the 2 items that you raised, the GIS, this is extremely important. So what our government has done is focused on assisting those that are most vulnerable and most in need. So the GIS increase was targeted at the most vulnerable single seniors. That increase was up to $947 per year. That has had a positive impact on 900,000 seniors across the country and has lifted 57,000 seniors out of poverty. As I have traveled and engaged with not only seniors, but organizations that work with seniors and family members, income security is something that comes up. So I think that initiative is one that was a tremendous step for our government. The New Horizons for Seniors program, I could take the rest of the time with the meeting to talk about that. This program is second to none. It's absolutely fantastic. And I think all members around this table have probably experienced firsthand the benefits of these investment dollars. So I see the chair's giving you 2 minutes. Let me just say briefly, to see these investment dollars in action the difference that it's making and having in the lives of seniors is absolutely tremendous. Things like intergenerational connections that are being established and seeing the magic that happens when seniors and youth come together. Gardens that are created and then for immigrants that maybe are living in apartments and don't have the ability to have their garden, and then taking that food and distributing it within community. And the other thing I would mention with respect, and I'm talking specifically about the community-based, and we in addition have the pan-Canadian, but the community-based projects, the difference that it's making is so important, and the supplemental help that comes as a result of that. So it's not only those investment dollars, it's seeing volunteers and others come around and help enhance those programs. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, if you'll remember, we also left Rothsay and went into St. John and toured Loch Lomond Villa, a wonderful organization and complex led by Cindy Donovan in St. John. And part of their mission is providing affordable housing for seniors, obviously, in the riding. We had great conversations with her and with many seniors there about the need for more affordable housing units in St. John Rothsay. So if I could, with Minister Duclos, could you touch on how the increased spending to implement the National Housing Strategy, which is outlined in the estimates, will help address the need for more seniors, affordable housing?
Very briefly, please. You have about 15 seconds.
15 seconds? Well, I'll cheat. I'll spread the breaking news that you mentioned, Wayne. This morning, Statistics Canada released the results of the Canadian Income Survey. We have now reduced poverty between 2015 and 2017 by more than 20%. 825,000 Canadians have been lifted out of poverty in 2 years. Wow. And that's only until 2017.
Thank you, Wayne, and didn't know you were from St. John Rothsay. Thank you for that. MP Falk, please. We have approximately 3 to 4 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here today. I have a question actually for Minister Hajdu. I came in a by-election in 2017. And so last summer, I specifically went on a Canada Summer Jobs tour. That's what I did. I met with every single organization that would meet with me that received funding or contacted my office that didn't receive funding because of the arbitrary values test that was placed by your government on the application for Canada Summer Jobs. I've actually had people contact my office this year saying, and even last year, hearing, yeah, the government's doubled the money, they've doubled the money. What in reality happened is we cut full-time jobs and cut them into part-time jobs of 6 weeks instead of 12 or 14 weeks or whatever organizations were getting previously. So I had organizations getting 6 weeks of funding. I'm just wondering, where does 6 weeks come from? Most university, even high school students, 8 weeks. They're looking for work. 6 weeks. Organizations had a hard time finding students to apply for these jobs because 6 weeks isn't enough. That's not enough money to earn for them to go back to school in the fall. I heard this firsthand from employers, let alone the employers that just weren't able to qualify whatsoever because consciously they couldn't check the box. So I'm just wondering, where does the 6 weeks come from? Like, why the cut in jobs?
Through the chair, thank you very much, MP Falk. And I will say that we're extremely proud of doubling the Canada Summer Jobs. I mean, 70,000 good quality jobs across the country for young people who oftentimes are not going to have an opportunity to. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, should I continue?
Rosemary, do you want to?
Yeah, well, how are you doubling a job when you're cutting the weeks by 6 to 8 weeks? How is that doubling jobs?
Minister?
So as my colleagues point out, Mr. Chair, the unique characteristic of the Canada Summer Jobs Program is that members of Parliament have control over how the money is allocated in their riding, from who will be funded. They can move them around. They can prioritize certain organizations. They can change the number of weeks. They can change the number of students. They can decrease students from one organization and increase them to another.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's approved. The department has the final
12 weeks. weeks, or they can give an organization 4 weeks. It's really customizable by MPs. And thank you, colleagues, for reminding me about that, because we're about to begin that process. I will say, though, that the Harper Conservatives had the worst youth unemployment rate since the 90s.
So my next question,
every year we
just
seek
wondering,
to double the
Minister?
number of work opportunities that the Harper Conservatives are giving young people.
Minister, I see that you're going back to the Harper Conservatives, and I'm just not interested in that. I'm interested in what's happening now under this Trudeau, this Trudeau Liberal government.
Guys,
last year, there was over
finish off on a high note,
1,500 organizations that were not allowed to have funding because of what their values were. So we had over 1,500 organizations that were denied, which could have been 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs per organization. It's interesting to see you justify or not even comment on that. We're going to comment on things from however many years ago, but not what's relevant of today. Over 1,500 organizations didn't receive funding because of their conscience. So it's so disappointing to see this government not respecting freedom of conscience, freedom of choice, freedom of choice. It's your choice on what you want to believe and what you don't want to believe.
Guys, not through the chair, please. Final word, Rosemary.
Hey, whose time is it, guys?
It's just very disappointing, that we have ministers here that, not all of them, this is, but for sure, Minister Haidu, that you want to focus on the last 10 years instead of today and the failures of this government.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for that. That unfortunately brings us to time. I want to thank all the ministers for being here, all the officials for being here as well, all of you in attendance, my colleagues, the folks to my left and right, all the folks in the booth, and the technical people. Thank you very much for helping us put this on, and so that everyone across Canada can be witness to this. Adjourned.